How's it going, everyone? We are here for some Week 8 salary exploitation. I'm hyped up this week. I'm ready for 38 carries in 19 minutes. What do you think, Jason?
You are jacked up for sure. That McDonald's coffee is really doing a number on
It's
you.
very, very hot. It's burnt my tongue. It burnt the back of my throat, but you just got to drink it anyway. So last week was a fun week for a bad slate. Um, a lot of bad, low-scoring games with bad offenses. We're sort of heading into bye weeks where a lot of the best offenses this year are not going to be on the main slate. Just before we head into quarterbacks, do you have any quick takes on the slate in general?
Eagles way too cheap on FanDuel. Way too cheap on FanDuel. They're just like an easy plug and play for most of those guys. Ertz is probably the only one appropriately priced. I don't know. I mean, like, there's not a lot of injuries to talk about that kind of freed up some value this week. I mean, there's a couple value guys, but I don't have anyone that's really like a huge punt.
Yeah, and like the great Lil Wayne once said, I walk it out like crutches. Two girls jump me like double dutches. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, I guess.
Quarterbacks. Carson Wentz versus San Francisco. You just mentioned how on FanDuel, they're insane values. What about for DK and Yahoo? And I guess we'll just hit on all the Eagles now. You also mentioned Alshon here and Blount. So I guess just give the run through of what you project for this offense.
I mean, we saw what Dallas did, to San Francisco over the weekend, and I don't think it's anything really out of the question to project Philly to just basically annihilate them at home. When you look at Wentz here, he's just far too cheap on FanDuel, 7,900. That's priced at QB7. He's QB3 or higher on the other two sites. I think he's obviously appropriately priced there. Like, I'll pay 7.2 for DraftKings. I'll pay 37 Yahoo. 79 though on FanDuel is just such a huge price tag for him. That's just not plug and play. I told you last night we were talking, and the combination of Alshon Jeffrey and Wentz on FanDuel this week is 14-2. If you want to add in LeGarrette Blount, I mean, he's 6,100. That's a combined $20,300 for a quarterback running back with, one of the higher implied totals and probably the best spot of the weekend. That's only 33% of your FanDuel salary. Like, that's crazy. So I just think they're way too cheap. Blount was obviously kind of a downfall last night. Like, you're taking some risk with him with Smallwood back, but I like all these guys. I think really when it comes down, like FanDuel, they're too cheap. DraftKings and Yahoo, they're appropriately priced.
Okay, let's discuss a topic I think a lot of people are going to be on this week. Is Alshon Jeffrey still good?
Yeah.
I think that's a valid question at this point. I really do. Now, is he an above-average receiver? Absolutely. But an above-average receiver versus number one corners every week doesn't necessarily mean fantasy success, especially when you have, the giant killer, Mac Hollins, running for 60 yards, and you got Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz and Torrey Smith doing bad things, and they still give him targets for some reason. So how confident are you in Alshon at the discount?
I'm confident on FanDuel, where he's 6,600. I'm confident in Yahoo, where he's $20. I'm less confident at 6,700 on DraftKings. That's a pretty steep price. But, I mean, when we look at things like face Janoris Jenkins, face Casey Hayward, face Patrick Peterson, face the Panthers in the previous four matchups, like, those are brutal matchups for wide receiver ones. Like, he's going to hit a stretch here. He plays the 49ers. He's going to have a tough matchup against the Broncos. But like Cowboys, Bears, Rams, Raiders, like Cowboys again, like Jeffrey's got a pretty good, I think, rest of the season projection in terms of what his upside can be. And we've just seen Philly basically spread the ball out a lot more. Like Nelson Aguilar, I don't think any of us expected Aguilar to have the type of season that he's having. We knew Ertz was going to be such a strong factor in this passing game. Alshon's going to have his weeks here. Like, I'm fine using him in this spot. San Francisco's got one of the worst secondaries, and I'm fine just basically firing away.
So, quick question: are you playing LeGarrette Blount in Wentz lineups, or are you using it as leverage?
I'll play one with him. Like if I roll like a naked Wentz and Blount or Wentz, Blunt, Ertz. There's just a lot of different variations of the stack you can go. I'll probably have 2 or 3 equal stacks.
Andy Dalton against the Colts, 57 on DK, 76 on FanDuel, 27 on Yahoo. I kind of went through Yahoo yesterday and made a few lineups. I mean, that's the clear play there. Also on DraftKings, super duper cheap. So the question is, if you play Dalton, can you play him without AJ Green, or do you have to play AJ Green?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on your lineup construction because Green's expensive, but
right, and that's the problem. So Andy Dalton's cheap, but if you're playing Andy Dalton, don't you want to stack with Green?
I do. I mean, I think it's easy because you can look at this week and in terms of like the top running backs, like you don't have Le'Veon Bell on the DK main slate. You do have it on FanDuel. Zeke is really expensive in a matchup against Washington that
no Gurley.
Yeah, like you're kind of missing out on some backs this week where it's a little bit different. So I think you can use Green and stack. I'm okay with like naked Andy Dalton and just rolling him out there at 5,700 and kind of hoping that 252 scores, maybe you get a weird rushing touchdown out of him, which seems to happen when you get these fluky guys below 6K. We've seen it a couple times already this year. So like I'm okay with him. I mean, Cincinnati's been in really tough spots this year, and this finally opens up against Indy, who just lost, obviously, Malik Hooker for the year. Like, he was a nice staple of that secondary. That was, I mean, bad, but they're going to be even worse now.
So running backs here, Mark Ingram, I think we're going to disagree on this one, and I'm going to give my take, and then I'll give you the floor. $22 on Yahoo is pretty egregious. Like, that's a great price again. I won't dispute that. 74 on DK, 72 on FanDuel. They're okay prices, but he's going to be 30%. You know what I mean? And I don't want that. Like, he's had basically 2 of the best games of his entire career the last 2 weeks. And I'm not saying that can't continue, but the Bears do kind of – they don't scare me, but they're that team that, like, is – they limit you. They don't stop you, but they definitely limit you. You know what I mean? So I guess, what are you looking at with Ingram? Do you think that receiving role is just so solidified that the 3 to 4 catches and 15 to 20 rushes is going to be enough for him?
Yeah, I mean, like I think on DraftKings you can make a case to use some other options. Like McCoy, Freeman are kind of in a similar range. Like you can make other pivots if you think Ingram will be chalky again here, just because I think game flow sets things up. But at 47 rushing attempts and 10 targets since Adrian Peterson has left, this is more looking at FanDuel Yahoo salary. Like 74 on DK, yes, he's priced up quite a bit. Like, you know, I think that's a decent price for him and where he should be with his volume. But FanDuel, he's still too cheap. Yahoo, he's still too cheap. So I think RB2 wise, like cash games, you can just kind of eat that. But like GPPs, I mean, there's pivots to be had. Like Freeman's kind of cheap this week. I like him if they can get that offense rolling. I don't know what they're doing, but like I don't mind some of these guys. And like Kamara's always that pivot on DraftKings, you know, for 5,900. Like he's getting targets. He's seen 19 rushing attempts. It's just a tough pivot because I think running back on DK this week is a little bit slim. There's only a few options. I don't love a lot of the value either.
Right, and you put Joe Mixon in here. Your boy played a little bit of, not a ton, but I sprinkled in some Joe Mixon last week. We were riding high in the first half, and it was it wasn't a great play, but it was like a perfect matchup for Mixon. Like you can't get better than that. And obviously, you know, ended with 8 touches, I think. What makes you confident that changes this week? Because now I'm a little skittish because I thought coming out of the bye, they were going to just hand it over to him. And now it's like, this guy is clearly superior, but what's Marvin Lewis thinking, you know? So I guess, is this sort of your tournament move?
Yeah, I can't play this guy in cash. Like as much as I want to in this spot, like you said, Marvin Lewis is just a moron. Like this guy can't figure it out. He continues to have a job. I don't get why. If he was in any other job scenario, he had been fired years ago. I don't get it. But Mixon 47 on DK, 59 on FanDuel, $18 on Yahoo, and a good game script spot against Indy's rush defense that hasn't been bad, but I kind of worry about them down the stretch here. They know Luck isn't coming back. Hooker was kind of a bright spot. He's out for the year. Like, we're starting to just basically see like this Colts team that's been putting up fights are going to just struggle down the stretch here. And like I said, the rush defense hasn't been bad. I've kind of liked what they've done, but they're just getting gashed by like some of these backs and just bad game scripts on their defense. And we also saw Tennessee basically kind of inflate their fantasy points allowed on that Monday night game, but he's cheap enough to take a shot on, like I said, because there's not a lot of backs to use. Touches over the last 4 weeks, 21, 21, 15, and then 10 against the Steelers. That was – I don't understand it. Like, I really don't. But I think he's cheap enough to take a shot on.
All right, wide receiver. We already talked Alshon. Devin Funchess against the Buccaneers. A lot of people talking about the Buccaneers defense getting healthier, and that was kind of a narrative going into last week. Well – they still stink. They still stink, and they're going to stink for the rest of the year. Their offense puts the defense in bad spots pretty consistently. Carolina coming off a down game, against, again, I mentioned a limiting Chicago defense. So I'm with you on this. I think this is a fun play, Carolina this week.
Yeah, I think they're back in play. We talked about them last week, kind of being the hesitation going into Chicago. It's those games are always weird, and that one was classified as weird. So I like Funchess this week. 8+ targets in each of the last 5 games. I think that's a good spot here against the Tampa Bay secondary that's been thrashed by wide receivers this year. Healthy or not, I just think Cam Newton goes out and puts up points. They should be able to rebound. Funchess in a pretty reasonable spot, I think. 5,900 on DK, 65 on FanDuel, 22 on Yahoo. I'm not a huge Kelvin Benjamin guy, but I can see him playing him as well this week. I think the Carolina offense, Newton's a little bit expensive, but it's a good stack here. And like you have Christian McCaffrey, I think you can play on DraftKings and with the PPR setting.
Deshaun Jackson, you wrote down. I can't deny the price. What do you like about this matchup, I guess?
So I kind of look and go, Carolina, obviously a pretty good defense. You kind of look at what teams are doing. They're loading up on Mike Evans. Mike Evans gets his, but we haven't really seen the ceiling of Mike Evans. We've seen Cameron Braid emerge. We've seen O.J. Howard have a couple of random games. But Deshaun Jackson has not seen less than 6 targets per game this year. Average depth of target leads the league. He's either putting up 3 for 80 with no touchdowns, or he's putting up like 3 for 40 with 1 touchdown. And I think there's going to be a week here where that combines and we get like a 5 for 102 game with a touchdown. And I think this game actually kind of could turn into a sneaky shootout, actually.
Interesting call. I like it. Next, tight ends. So I love the Chargers this week, just because I think in terms of the Patriots, they're always good about taking away your number one option. What is the Chargers' number one option, really? Like, is it Keenan Allen? Is it Hunter Henry? Is it Melvin Gordon? Is it like some weeks it's Travis Benjamin? Like, I think they're going to be able to move the ball against them just because they're so versatile. You threw Hunter Henry in here, getting a ton of snaps, really sort of putting Gates in the back here. So what's your take?
I like the prices. I think he's going to move up in price at some point here over the next few weeks. 4,800 on DK, I feel like that's reasonable. 55 on FanDuel, 22 on Yahoo. We've seen Ertz take a ginormous jump, and like Gronkowski's up there as well. Like we've reached kind of a pinnacle for those two guys in price, where I think it kind of was, plug and play Ertz. Now I can't just plug and play Ertz because he's super expensive, but Henry, I think he's going to be that guy this week. I think he sees around 6-7 targets at the most. Favorable spot for San Diego. Patriots or Los Angeles. Patriots have allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game in tight ends this year. And he's on the board now. Like, Antonio Gates is done. It's finally Hunter Henry's turn. He's been producing no less than 8 FanDuel points per game. So I trust him in all formats this week. I like the Chargers as well. I like Melvin too as kind of that GPP play.
Fair enough. Jack Doyle.
It surprised you, huh?
Not surprising. I get it. Talk to me about the play. The price is good. The
So
price is great.
the price is good. Like we've dried up. Like the well is low on tight end values now. Like we used to have Evan Ingram. We used to have Hunter Henry, who's a little bit more expensive. Like we used to have some darts. Charles Clay was cheap for a while. It's kind of dried up. And Jack Doyle he's not Behrman, but he might as well be. 7, 11, 7 targets over the last 3 weeks. Cincinnati 22nd DVOA against tight ends. Hilton's going to be locked up for the next 6-7 weeks. And it's pretty clear that Brissett is looking to Doyle with his target share. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of red zone usage for this Colts team just because they're not getting to the red zone. But I don't like the Colts, offense moving forward. But I think Doyle's an interesting punt on a week-to-week basis now because the targets are there. And I think he's not going to kill your lamps. It's just more of, hey, I need the extra 1,000. You know what? I don't mind using Doyle.
Fair enough. Defenses, you put Pittsburgh and Bills. Pittsburgh playing Detroit. I love this matchup. I think the Bell Steelers stack is very optimal this week. This is just a classic Bell gets 100 receiving yards game to me. And they keep the pace going. No Tate probably. So yeah. What's your take on that? I guess.
I think the no Golden Tate, like Pittsburgh's been really good against wideouts, and their passing defense has been phenomenal this year. They've yet to allow 20 points to actual opposing offenses, not considering that Jags game where they love the pick sixes, but. They're cheap, like 4,400 against Detroit. Like the only thing that you probably wish was this game was in Pittsburgh. But no Golden Tate, I just don't have a faith in really the running game getting going or them being able to just kind of control the clock. I think it's going to be a lot of 3-and-outs for Stafford. I'm not loving it, man. Like I think this offense is in big trouble without Tate. I know Kenny Golladay might be back and healthy, but like him, Marvin Jones, TJ Jones, Eric Ebron's been
is Tate confirmed out? I saw he was doubtful, which means he's out. But like, is this going to be 3 or 4 weeks, or is this just like this week?
I definitely out this week. I think this could be a lingering thing. Like AC joints are kind of a tough, like 2 to 3, 4 week process. I'm no doctor though, obviously.
Well, of course, but I usually go to you with my medical advice. So. Now the cat's out of the bag there. Bills, Oakland. I kind of like Amari Cooper instead of the Bills, but I can dig it. What do you see in a pick six?
I mean, kind of like Buffalo allowed 27 points this past week and still managed 7 fantasy points. Like this was their first time below 8 fantasy points on the year. And I just look at Oakland, like traveling to Buffalo from the West Coast is always troubling for teams. I've seen Seattle come here and just, shoot themselves in the foot. I saw Arizona come here. Like there's teams that just go to Buffalo and they just really struggle. Like I like them as a GPP defense. I'm not really high on the passing game. I mean, I was kind of surprised that Tampa managed to put up 27, but this is a good defense. They're disciplined. They're a lot better than they were in the past, even with some of the lesser names. Like they got some young talent here. So I think for Buffalo's price, like 2,900 on DK, 46 on FanDuel, 60 on Yahoo, like they're a decent GPP defense because I know Carr's, he's a decent job at taking care of the ball, but if they're not able to run the ball, I'm kind of worried. And I think that's going to be the case because I know Lynch is out. They're going to be using the rotation. I'm not really thrilled with Oakland this week.
Fair enough. Any other takes before we head out?
Nope. I'm going to go take a nap.
All right. As always, certainly give us a like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Check out the article on dailyfantasycafe.com. And later in the week, we always do a slate breakdown. So if you're looking for more, in-depth on not just values, but all the plays on the slate, we certainly break that down later in the week. So check that out on our, YouTube page and on the site. So for Russell Clay, I'm going to do like a weather sign out or those people that are in their local community. For Russell Clay, we'll see you in week 9.